Hello everyone, it is January 18th, 2018, and I lied to every single one of you. On last show, I said that I wasn't going to do a Senior Bowl show. Well, I completely lied to you because I will be doing previews of the offense and the defense of the Senior Bowl. I mean, this is my life. I love the NFL draft, scouting it, evaluating it, going over it, talking with friends about it. And I'm going to be in Mobile for the second straight year. Very excited about that opportunity to see these physical specimens just display their skill set on the field. So I'm going to talk about it on my show. This is Football, and I am Nicholas Filato. And this is also somewhat of a distraction because the Knicks game last night. Now, I'm not going to dive too much into the Knicks. I know what the Knicks are. I'm not exactly expecting them to make the playoffs. I think Porzingis needs another piece. He's not this Kevin Durant kind of superstar. I mean, I'm aware of the New York Knicks. But how the hell does that referee call a technical foul in a one-possession game when there's a jump ball with 17 seconds left in the game? That ref making the game about him, I could not believe what I was seeing when he teed up Courtney Lee for literally nothing. He should be damn ashamed of himself. Referees like that put themselves in the spotlight open themselves to criticism. And that's all he deserves in that situation. You never call a foul that determines the game in a pressure situation like that. I think the NBA has some serious issues when it comes to that. And I don't like to sit here and just bash refs because it is so easy to do. But in that kind of situation, in that context, absolutely horrible, inexcusable, pathetic. Anyways, let's talk about the NFL draft. Let's talk about the Senior Bowl going down there at the end of the week. And we have a lot of prospects that are heading down there. Unfortunately, a lot of top prospects did withdraw some late scratches, but that's going to open up some opportunities for some of the guys from the East-West Shrine game or even people from the NFLPA game, if they really show up, to get bumped up to the Senior Bowl. We've seen that along the way. We've seen guys like Brett Toth even this year, who is the offensive tackle from Army. Ironically enough, I'm actually friends with his sister. He's a Florida kid from the Gainesville area, and I go down to Gainesville every year, so I know his sister. And he will be at the Senior Bowl. He also got an invite to the East-West Shrine game. He's down there right now. But some of these Senior Bowl scratches right now, Mason Rudolph, Oklahoma State's quarterback, will not be there. Memphis wide receiver Anthony Miller will not be there, which is incredibly unfortunate because he is one of the more fun wide receiver prospects. He has excellent acceleration and burst, tracking, adjusting. He's one of those big play kind of threats. I mean, he's a little bit undersized. He's sub 6 foot, and the demand for that kind of receiver isn't always, people are always looking for that 6'5" kind of guy, but there's definitely a place in the NFL for someone like that. I would like to see him be a little bit more physical as a blocker and things like that. This guy's potentially on the short guy brand, depending on how he does measure at the combine if he goes. Michigan's Maurice Hurst is not going. I'm guessing he has all the leverage. He's more than likely going to be a first-round pick anyway, so he probably couldn't improve his stock too much down in Mobile. So now he's not going. Rashaan Evans of Alabama, the linebacker, is also not going. Neither is Anthony Everett of Alabama, the cornerback we saw last year when Alabama went to the title game. Jonathan Allen did not go to the Senior Bowl. And then we saw Ryan Anderson down there. And Ryan Anderson really, I thought, didn't do a justice to his stock. I mean, he was still a second-round pick by Washington. I thought they reached a little bit because he was really exposed in one-on-one drills, especially when it came to covering in space. Like, you can kind of see his athletic deficiencies out there on the field, on display in Mobile. He still picked high, so good for him. Other players that are not going to make it is Kareem Moore of Boston College, defensive back. Davin Bellamy, he's one of my guys I'm assigned to at ITP. Outside linebacker from UGA. Stony Brook's Timon Paris, he's an offensive tackle. Martinez Rankin, another offensive tackle. And Royce Freeman of Oregon. Royce Freeman, I was excited to see down there. I mean, I always thought he had some ball security concerns, and I would like to see a little bit more sand in his ass as a blocker, especially as a pass blocker. And his balance through contact, I saw him get tackled a lot for a bigger guy, get tackled a lot by arm tackles and things of that nature. But I thought he showed pretty good patience, burst, acceleration, and things of that nature. And I was excited to see him down there. But again, he is a late scratch, as well as this one hurts me the most because he's one of my favorites, quote-unquote sleepers, I guess you could say, and I'm also assigned to him for the ITP draft guide, and that is Wake Forest's Duke Ejiofor. I've been singing his praises since last summer when I got assigned to him, and if you check my Twitter, which I barely have any followers, but if you check my Twitter, you can see that I have a lot of videos, and I talk about him quite often. He will not be there. That's disappointing, but hey, that's the world. Someone else gets the opportunity, and hopefully they can showcase their skill set and make a name for themselves. Because Senior Bowl, these events are very, very important to the process. Okay, let's think about last year. Hassan Reddick was a tweener, I guess you could say, an outside linebacker / edge. Can he play off-ball linebacker? That was the big question with Hassan Reddick. He was probably going to be like a 4th, 5th round pick, maybe a 3rd round pick. And he improved his stock to be a top 15 pick where the Cardinals drafted him in the 1st round last year because of what he did in Mobile. And I'm telling you, man, I listen. I have my ears open all the time when I'm down there. I'll sit next to, and I'll move every 15 minutes just to sit next to important people. I'm sitting next to general managers. I'm sitting next to head scouts. I'm sitting next to really, really high-paid individuals, highly publicized individuals, and I'm listening to what they say. And I heard so much about Hassan Reddick, and he improved his stock drastically. And I think there are some players down there that can do that. Guys like Duke Ejiofor, I thought, could do that. Guys like Marcus Davenport, who we'll dive into on the defensive side. Another player I really like. Another player I cross-checked for the ITP guide. So there are a lot of players like that. But there are also a ton of prospects that are criticized or really highly publicized, played in big games. And we're going to go through the offense today, like I said. And we're going to start with none other than Baker Mayfield. Somebody that I was surprised he accepted his bid to come to the Senior Bowl, but I am so excited. He's 6'1", 220 pounds, has pretty good thickness to him coming out of Oklahoma. We saw him lose to Georgia, but this kid is incredibly exciting. He has the quote-unquote off-field issues because he got publicly intoxicated and tackled by a cop, and you saw him grabbing his junk towards the Kansas fans. So he has that edge to him. And you hear the lazy comparison that Baker Mayfield is Johnny Manziel. And now, the only reason people are saying that is because they are mobile gunslingers who are white and undersized and have questions off the field. So everyone just makes that lazy comparison. Now, Baker Mayfield has a big boy arm. He makes big boy throws often. And I don't question that about Baker. Okay, now I didn't scout Baker Mayfield, but I watched a lot of him throughout the college football season, and he has impressed me. Now, one thing that I'm a little bit hesitant on is during that Georgia game, he was playing a big boy defense, an SEC defense, because we know he plays in the Big 12 where the defenses are wide open and kind of inflate your stats a little bit. You get it. He's playing an SEC hard-hitting defense, something that he's going to see in the NFL with dudes like Raekwon Smith, Lorenzo Carter, Davin Bellamy, and all those big boys that they have. And it seemed like he was a little bit rattled in the second half. And I just question just a little bit that what if Lincoln Riley was conservative because Baker did get rattled? I'm not saying that he had concussion or anything like that, but it's not out of the realm. He was taking some big hits, and I feel like that's another thing he has to do is work on like improving his Russell Wilson kind of skill set, as in I'm not going to take these big punishing hits. Because Baker Mayfield has that edge. I think he needs to find a way to channel that a little bit better. But I don't think he's Johnny Manziel. He's not going to go out snorting cocaine all the time. And I'm not sitting there knocking Johnny, but they have two totally different upbringings. Baker Mayfield is a guy who has a chip on his shoulder. He was a guy who couldn't get recruited by anybody. And he's proven all of these things. So I'm really excited to see him down there. I think the quarterbacks are going to have success down there because there's not fantastically complex defenses they're going to see down there. Everything's very vanilla. They can show off their arm strength and they can show off things of that nature. But Baker had 43 touchdowns this year, 6 picks, 40 and 8 the year before, 36 and 7. So he's very, very highly publicized, and he's going to be on the North team with John Elway and the Denver Broncos coaching staff. The South team is the Texans and Bill O'Brien. And also, Josh Allen. Mr. Josh Allen from Wyoming will be with John Elway and the Denver Broncos. So the NFL gave John Elway a gift in both these quarterbacks because they possess a top 5 pick and they, happen to need a quarterback. Now, Josh Allen is a little bit different. It seems like a lot of people disagree on Josh Allen. So I went through some of his tape. I didn't pull a Mark Schofield and watch every single game or anything like that. I just watched a couple games of his. And you can see it on the tape. He has those physical tools that you want and that the NFL teams seem to covet. That is the size. That is the athleticism and the mobility. That is the pure arm strength. But he still lacks a lot of the little nuances of playing quarterback. The mechanics, the footwork, the anticipation, the timing on his throws. Does he throw people open? I didn't really necessarily see that. And even on like simple throws, like say a flare to the flat, Well, you're supposed to put it on his upfield shoulder and give him a chance to break. He'll throw it behind him, and it's just very, very inconsistent. And I have a lot of question marks about that. And I can see why teams are enamored by him because of that size, because of that arm strength, that typical build of a quarterback. But I have so much hesitation, especially when you look at his completion percentage. And I always look at teams' completion percentage. At 56.3. I was expecting him to take that next step after the 2016 season where he went 28-15. From touchdown interception ratio. This year he went 16-6. And in that bowl game, John Elway was in attendance for that game, threw 3 touchdown passes in the first quarter. And it was awesome. That was great. I think he was playing Central Michigan or some like derp team. Because again, he plays in the Mountain West. But I have a lot of hesitations about him, especially when you're talking about a first round pick. He would need to fall into the right system. I think he needs to get the Pat Mahomes treatment. And what I mean by that is learn under some experienced quarterback like Alex Smith, get bred into a system, have a quarterback whisperer like Andy Reid, be able to fix those mechanics. Because any coach is going to look at that and be like, oh, with that arm strength, for the ability where he could throw an out route to the far hash, from the far hash, and hit a 20-yard out route on a dime with his velocity, teams are going to love that. But they think they're going to be able to coach up all those inconsistencies. It's not always the case, and people can get in trouble when it comes to that. So that's my hesitation on Josh Allen. But again, we'll see him down here. I'm excited to watch him. He's probably the quarterback prospect I'm most excited to go over down there. I mean, Baker Mayfield, I love the kid. I kind of got somewhat of a feel for what he is. Josh Allen, still a little bit of an enigma. And there are other quarterbacks too. Now, again, we had Mason Rudolph. Don't mind the train going by, the Wayne train. We had Mason Rudolph back out of Oklahoma State, another kid with an arm and all that. He's backed out. But then you got Luke Falk. Seems like he's been at Washington State forever. He will be down there, 6'4", 223 pounds. I mean, he was in the Mike Leach system. It seemed like there was a lot of crossing routes, a lot of drags and things of that nature. I don't know if he's going to really be a huge NFL-type prospect. I think he'll be a pretty good backup in the league. I like Kurt Benkert a lot coming out of Virginia. Now, this kid is somebody who started at ECU, transferred from ECU, and had 2 solid seasons with Virginia. Went 21-11 when it came to touchdown interception ratio in 16, and then last year 25-9. He played really well in that Miami game in the first half of that game, sustained by Miami, put Miami on their toes when Miami really needed to win this game, but then Miami ended up storming back, and there was a lot of mistakes in the second half. But I think this kid has pretty good arm strength. It's not the strongest arm. It's not Josh Allen or anything like that. But I think Kurt Benkert could be somebody, just from the little film that I've watched and a little bit of Virginia football that I have seen, that is somewhat intriguing. And maybe somebody that you can get a little bit later, kind of like Kirk Cousins, get him in like the 4th round and then groom him into a system and become a really solid system quarterback. I think Kyle Lauletta, not seen any film on him. Not going to pretend like I have, but I've heard positive things on Kyle Lauletta from Richmond. I believe that's an FCS school. So that is obviously going to be a transition. He can come down here and make a name for himself as well. People I respect who know quarterbacks seem to like Kyle Lauletta, so I'm excited to see him. He's 6'3", 215. Then we also have Mike White from Western Kentucky and Brendan Silvers from Troy. I have not seen any tape on them, so I don't want to sit here and act like I have, because I'm not a phony. I don't do that kind of stuff. But those are the quarterbacks that will be down there. And again, Mason Rudolph backed out, so we'll see if they bump up someone from the Shrine game. Maybe JT Barrett, because he's doing really well, supposedly, down at the practices at the East-West Shrine game. And obviously, JT Barrett has a lot of pedigree, winning national championships and all those kind of things. I think Urban Meyer considers him basically a son. Now, granted, I mean, he was injured with the national championship, but still, Ohio State, he's been there forever, it seems like. Riley Ferguson from Memphis, the quarterback there, he can also get bumped up. I've been hearing a lot of buzz about him as well. But those are the quarterbacks. And we're going to move on to the running backs. Royce Freeman has backed out, which is very unfortunate because I felt like Royce Freeman was going to be somebody I was going to really look forward to seeing down there in Mobile. But he has backed out. And then I look at some of these other running backs. We have Kalen Ballage out of Arizona State. Now, Kalen Ballage is 6'3", 230 pounds, and I watched his tapes against Washington, Colorado, and then when he was at UCLA. He lines up a lot out of the shotgun, the pistol. That's what they run out there, Arizona State. He had 15 total touchdowns in 2016, breaking over 1,000 yards. In this past year, he had about 669 yards with 6 total touchdowns. So he kind of took a little bit of a step back now. He has a really, really big body. He does have receiving skills, can adjust to the ball, has some nimble footwork with some good jump cuts and things of that nature. Had pretty good acceleration for a man of his size and some burst on these inside runs. He can hit the hole and then go. I thought he showed good vision as well, but kind of drops his head sometimes, and I think he lacks speed to gain the edge. Even in college, I saw this come up on tape, and that's really concerning, because if you don't have speed to get the edge in college, you're definitely not going to have speed to get the edge against NFL linebackers. And for someone of his size, I didn't think he was really overly physical. Definitely didn't have the breakaway speed. I would like to see him with more power, and I would like to see him play like he's 230 pounds, which is something that I really did not see. And I don't want to make the comparisons to Deonta Foreman, because I didn't necessarily see that they're exact clones, but I remember that was a knock I had on Deonta Foreman, who was a guy who ran really fast at the combine, but he was 230 pounds, and I didn't feel like he played like he was 230 pounds. I felt like he was more of a finesse kind of player. Kalen Ballage, I feel like, does not have that kind of breakaway speed. I feel like he was arm tackled way too often, didn't have that balance through contact that you would want in a starting running back, and I don't think he really finished all too well. But I'm still excited to see him, because 6'3", 230 pounds is a very, very big man, and that should not be written off. And then there's Rashad Penny. Rashad Penny is running back who is from San Diego State. And if you remember last year's draft, if you paid attention to the hashtag Short Guy brand, did a live show about the hashtag Short Guy brand, we had Donnell Pumphrey as one of the members, and he got injured and did not really do anything in Philadelphia. But Rashad Penny filled in for Donnell Pumphrey. And Penny had 1,000 yards, I want to say, in 2016. I could be wrong about that, but he's 5'11", 220 pounds. And I watched his games against Fresno State and his game against Stanford. And he runs a lot out of the pro style, a lot out of the I formation, following the fullback, using his eyes to see the blocking holes, and hitting it. Hitting gap. He has compact size, good foot speed. He's a north to south kind of runner. I thought he had solid vision and good change of direction, burst, and speed, especially for a man who is 220 plus. Pretty good athlete as well, very decisive, hit the hole, and he would go. And again, this guy is somebody who had over 2,000 rushing yards this year, 23 rushing touchdowns. So it's somebody that is experienced. And that's just what they do in San Diego State, is they run the rock. They run the football. You don't accumulate those kind of stats over 2,000 rushing yards, you know what I'm saying, if you don't run the football. And they do it very well up there in San Diego State. Again, ball security, one thing I saw on tape, put the ball on the ground too much. Don't really like to see that by any stretch of the imagination. I think he needs a little bit of work with his pass protection technique as well. I mean, a lot of these guys do need a lot of work when it comes to that. I thought Kalen Ballage needed a lot of work with his pass protection, because he would just drop his head and lunge, and then it's just one of those things that just exposing your quarterback. So I don't like seeing things of that nature. And then there's Akrum Wadley. Now, Akrum Wadley, I really like. Now, I have a soft spot for Iowa, and I also have a soft spot for Akrum Wadley because he is a Jersey kid. But watching him, I think he can really earn a role in the NFL. I think he needs to prove, and I think he can do this in Mobile, because it's kind of hard to gauge running backs when you're in Mobile, because a lot of the stuff's not exactly full speed. But I think pass protection in the one-on-one drills, when you can go against the linebackers, like last year, I remember seeing linebackers like Hassan Reddick cover running backs, and it made them look really well. And then I saw linebackers like Ryan Anderson or Ben Boulware not be able to cover running backs out of the backfield, and they were just exposed athletically. But Wadley had two 1,000-yard seasons in a row. 2016, 2017, broke 1,000 yards, had 10 touchdowns in each, and is a good receiver out of the backfield. I think he can be a solid third down back in the NFL. It's just he's going to have to show that he can pass protect. And again, ball security. Another thing, I saw him put the ball on the ground too much. He came up big in big moments. I watched the Penn State game, and I watched his Nebraska game. And in Penn State, you saw him take that game over. And I really like Akrum Wadley. I think he could be this Kareem Hunt of this draft, where you get him in the 3rd and 4th round, and he can come in and, at worst, be a good to solid third down back. because he is somewhat undersized at 5'11", about 190. But he has the speed, the agility, and the quickness, nimble footwork, has a second gear and acceleration to blow past safeties and linebackers trying to pursue him. He also has the change of direction and the balance through contact that I like to see, especially for someone who is small. So I really am a big fan of Akrum Wadley. Very excited to see him down there in Mobile. And then the last running back we're going to talk about is Ito Smith out of Southern Missouri. Now, I tried to look at a lot of film of Ito. I got the game of Florida State and the game at LSU, which was a 2016 game. I mean, Ito Smith had 3 1,000-yard seasons, totaled of 42 touchdowns, and over 40 receptions in the 3 seasons, so he can receive. This guy is potentially up there for the hashtag short guy brand. I'll definitely come out with that show when the draft is very near. But the guy's quick-footed. He's quick-footed. He has good burst, second gear, change of direction, agility, all the kind of things. He has the patience. He is an active as a lead blocker on jet sweeps when they do things of that nature. He has the receiving skills. He adjusts, has good hands, can pluck and then go. I really liked watching his tape. I think he's very interesting. Again, incredibly undersized, and ball security is going to be another thing. The frame that he has is somewhat small. I'm not sure about his balance through contact. There's one thing I had a question on. I don't think he's going to break many tackles, and I think he's going to get a lot of comparisons to people like Tariq Cohen and things of that nature just because he's small and he is shifty and has very good change of direction. I don't think he's quite as dynamic as Tariq Cohen, but again, if he has a big week, he's somebody that you could be talking about, and you're going to be hearing about it. Just go tune into NFL Network, and they're going to be talking a lot about all these people. And those are the running backs I just wanted to hit on real quickly. I'm sure maybe a couple running backs may be bumped up. I want to say the Fordham kid was having a good week, but I'm not sure if he got injured down there at the East-West Shrine practices. Moving on to the wide receivers. And the wide receiver group this year in general for the NFL draft isn't exactly incredibly dynamic. I think you got guys like Calvin Ridley, who will more than likely be a first-round pick. You have Cortland Sutton, who could potentially be a first-round pick. Christian Kirk, who's like a Golden Tate, Doug Baldwin slot kind of receiver. He could potentially be a high second-round pick, but it's not these dynamic drafts that we've had in the past, like 2014 or anything like that. But the person headlining the Senior Bowl is James Washington out of Oklahoma State, Mason Rudolph's favorite target. Now, this guy is 6 foot, 205 pounds, but he's a deep threat, which is kind of odd because he has this compact build. Like when you see him in a jersey, I think his number is number 28. And when you see him in a jersey, he looks like a running back, but he is a wide receiver, and he has some deep receiving skills. He can track the ball. He does a good job adjusting to the ball, has a second and third gear to accelerate past defenders, and he'll lower his shoulder, and he'll try to run you over. He can break tackles. He's very, very physical. I think I've seen people comp him to Steve Smith. He's taller than Steve Smith, but he does have that physical nature where it's like, I'm a wide receiver, but I'm going to run right through you. But he does not have that length, and he played in the Big 12 where he was not pressed at all. So I want to see him in the one-on-ones down in Mobile. Can he beat the press? And you know what? The cornerback group isn't exactly great, especially now that Anthony Averett is not going. So I think these receivers can have a pretty good week exposing some of the corners down there in Mobile. James Washington's route tree is another thing that I feel like he needs to work on because it felt like it was just comebacks and 9 routes, things of that nature. He didn't really do anything exotic at Oklahoma State. So how is he as a route runner? How crisp are his routes going in and out of the break? How will he release again at the line of scrimmage against press? What's his footwork like? His hand usage? His inside release? His outside release? All those kind of things are something and questions that James Washington has, and they're real questions too. And he could sneak into the first round. I would not be surprised if he does. But these are questions that need to be answered. I don't think he's an elite athlete, and I think size is going to be a concern for some of these NFL teams. But he had 74 catches, over 1,500 yards, and 13 touchdowns at Oklahoma State. And again, Mason Rudolph backing out kind of sucks because him and Marcel Aitman are both going to be there. Like James Washington, Marcel Aitman, those were his receivers. And that's just chemistry right there that he would already have a rapport with these two receivers, these two good receivers, because Aitman is probably going to be a day 2 pick. He has excellent size, 6'4", 220 pounds. I watched his tapes versus Baylor, Virginia Tech. He had 59 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns. I mean, he's going to block downfield. He's going to impose his will on cornerbacks. I think he is really good at jumping, extending, and high pointing the ball to keep the cornerbacks away. He's very good at adjusting his body to shield the ball and use his size to his advantage, and all that length, has the strength. But he's going to be a 24-year-old rookie. He's not overly explosive, and I did see him have a couple concentration drops on the film. I think he has good hands, but I would like them to be a little bit stronger. He tends to body catch sometimes, but still somebody who's going to be very intriguing because of his size, and he was productive. 6'4", 220 pounds. I mean, he's a good athlete. He's not a rare athlete, but definitely somebody to pay attention to. Jamon Moore out of Missouri is another one. I watched his Auburn and Kentucky tape. He had 65 catches for over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's a very willing blocker on the edge, has length, good change of direction. I thought he was a good route runner as well. He will drop his weight, sell his cuts with head fakes and things of that nature, and then burst and accelerate past individuals. Definitely an edgy player. I know there's a clip I saw going around Twitter where someone is trying to throw him out of bounds on the sideline, and he just will not go out of bounds. He shoves the guy afterwards. It's just one of those dominating kind of things. You could tell he's probably one of those big trash talkers. I would like to see a little bit more competitive toughness when the play is away from him and things of that ilk. I question his route tree. It's somewhat limited. I saw him do a lot of 7 routes, so like the corner of the flags. Saw him do a lot of 9 routes, so streaks and things of that nature, a lot of comebacks and curls, but I'm not sure how he is over the middle and things of that nature. Could be great. Who knows? And hopefully they'll show that down in Mobile. He's another one who is somewhat of a body catcher. I think Michael Gullap is somebody who can really rise up boards, and I already have seen a lot of draftniks talking up Michael Gullap out of Colorado State. He transferred from Butler Community College. I watched his game against Bama, which was somewhat concerning because it just did not seem like he could get separation against Anthony Averett, Levi Wallace, and the Bama defense. Seemed like he did struggle. I also watched his game against Wyoming and Oregon State to try to get a good feel for Michael Gullap because I've heard good things. He had 76 catches for 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns in 2016, and last year had 100 receptions for 1,400 yards and 7 touchdowns. He has strong hands, will extend, has a physical nature to him. He's a good athlete with really good change of direction, a good release off the line of scrimmage, and he can track and adjust. But again, I question, because he played at Colorado State, I question how he does against top competition. So him matching up against some of these corners like Levi Wallace and some of these other guys, Duke Dawson, I think it could be important to watch for Michael Gullap. And Gullap is on the North team, so he will be catching balls from Josh Allen, and he will also be catching balls from Baker, Mayfield, Luke Falk, and all of those Northern quarterbacks. Anthony Miller dropped out of the Senior Bowl. Unfortunately, I think it might be an injury concern, but either way, he will not be there. That leads me to Jaleel Scott out of New Mexico State. I watched his film against Texas State, watched his film against Arkansas State, and this guy's big. He's 6'6", 220 pounds, a huge red zone threat. Had 76 catches for over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. Has that size, that length, the concentration ability to make these concentration catches, these acrobatic catches when he jumps up, adjusts his body to the ball, plucks it out of the air, secures it, and falls with a ridiculous catch radius. And you've seen this on film time and time again. He can adjust the ball very, very well. He has really good mental processing as well. I saw plenty of times on tape where it seemed like his quarterback was either running out of the pocket or being flushed out of the pocket, and he would adjust his route to the right angle to beat zone coverage. I saw that a couple different times, and that's very impressive for someone young like Jaleel Scott. I thought he ran a good amount of routes in college as well. You'd see him run the comebacks. You'd see him run over the deep middle, the slants, and all those kind of things. So he has a more diverse route tree than some of the other receivers in this draft. But he played in the Sun Belt, which is weaker competition. He really only had 1 year of production, so he's going to see some questions about that. And he doesn't really have elite speed or excellent athleticism. He's more of a long strider. That's kind of how he eats the ground up at 6'6", 220. That's a big boy right there. I think Traquan Smith out of UCF, a lot of good, decent UCF products down here. I watched his tape against Auburn, so that's the only really game I watched when it came to him. What I saw was I could see him making good contested catches in the game. He had 59 catches for over 1,000 yards this season, and I'm just a little concerned about his route tree. Doesn't have burning speed. I don't think he's going to be a game changer, but he could definitely come in and be your fourth wide receiver, your fifth wide receiver year one and progress, see how he does. 6'1", 205 pounds, so he has solid size. I also, speaking of size, want to talk a little bit about my man, because he's definitely going to be heading the hashtag short guy brand, and that is Braxton Berrios, 5'9", 186 pounds out of Miami. Last year, we saw Trent Taylor, saw Ryan Switzer go down to the Senior Bowl. They impressed in practice. We saw them both, mainly Trent Taylor, actually, more than Switzer, because Switzer had Cole Beasley playing ahead of him, do something in the NFL this year. And it looks like Taylor is going to have a role with Jimmy G and the San Francisco 49ers. But Braxton Berrios, excited to see him down there because he's more than likely going to jump on that hashtag short guy burn. Javon Wims of Georgia, 6'4", 215 pounds, very, very long individual, will also be down there. Saw him in the national championship game. He got dinged up a little bit. And we know Georgia is going to be that run the ball down your throat kind of team. They're not going to really air it out or anything of that nature. So I want to see him do different things down in Mobile. He's, Nick Chubb and Sony Michel were the guys who just kept getting the rock for that offense because it worked. Jake Fromm did a really good job this year as a true freshman. But Javon Wims, I want to see him in these one-on-ones. I want to see him defeat press. I want to see him to do all of these things down there. Then we also have Alan Lazard out of Iowa State. Really good size at 6'5", 220 pounds. Watched his games against Oklahoma State and his games against Memphis. This year he had 71 catches for 941 yards and 10 touchdowns. Again, I thought he used his excellent body size very well, especially on slants, shielding the cornerback, had a good release off the line of scrimmage. Another individual who can make those contested catches, make acrobatic catches, really uses his eyes, his concentration to adjust his body, locate the ball, then secure it. And I really thought that he came back to the ball well. He would run a route, and instead of waiting the ball to get to him, he would run back through the ball, catch it, minimizing the opportunity of the cornerback to knock the ball away or potentially intercept the ball. Thought he had excellent body control and adjustment, like I said. But this guy, with this kind of size, he's not a burner. He's not overly agile. I don't think he is, I don't think he's a very good athlete. He might be maybe good. I didn't do an extensive evaluation on him, but he didn't seem like he had incredible athleticism or anything like that. I would like to see him be a little bit more physical as a blocker. He was a solid blocker, but I felt like he wasn't as physical as he could be, especially with the imposing size that he does have. And then there's Darren Carrington II out of, he was Oregon. That's how we originally know him, but he transferred to Utah, had 70 catches for 980 yards and 6 touchdowns this past year. He's about 6 foot, 200 pounds. I watched his tape against BYU and his tape against San Jose State. Thought he had, good quickness off the line of scrimmage. Transferred, he was a graduate from Oregon to Utah, like I said, and thought he could be a short passing game weapon. So in the short to intermediate ranges, things of that nature. Don't think he has much skill downfield. He's not going to be jumping up, winning contested catches or anything of that nature. He also has some character concerns. He was arrested for a DUI, so it's just something to kind of bring up. I would like to see his downfield skills, and I will be watching that down in Mobile. Just because I didn't see it on tape doesn't mean that he doesn't have it, obviously, because I haven't watched 20 games on each of these guys. I've been watching a lot of edge, because that's what I'm doing for ITP, doing all of that kind of stuff. Then we have the tight ends, and we're going to briefly, because I feel like this episode's going longer than I expected. So we're going to go through the tight ends. We're going to go through the offensive tackles, and then you got the fullbacks. That's how it's designated for the Senior Bowl, but you got guys who are Swiss Army knives when it comes to fullbacks. But I haven't watched extensive tape on all of these tight end prospects, but the ones that I have dibble-dabbled in a little bit, guys like Troy Fumagalli out of Wisconsin, 6'6", 248 pounds. The thing I really like about Troy Fumagalli is kind of different than Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki can high point the ball. We'll talk about him a little bit, and I think he does a really good job at contested catches. But Fumagalli, I feel like, is a better route runner than Gesicki, and Fumagalli also is a willing blocker. I think Fumagalli has pretty good hands. I think he can really carve out a role in the NFL, especially for teams who want a good run blocker who is equipped to be a solid pass catcher out of the backfield, because he played at Wisconsin. Wisconsin, they run the football. You need to know how to block, and he can most certainly block. Troy Fumagalli had over 40 catches the last 2 years, over 500 yards, and last year he had 4 touchdowns, 2 the year before. Then you have Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki is more of the receiving type, and I really want to see him improve as a blocker. I want to see him impose his physical strength, his will on these edges, especially in the one-on-ones and things of that nature. They put the tight ends against some of these edges to see how they do block down in Mobile in those individual drills. Because Gesicki, we know he can jump up. We know he can high point the ball. We know he can pluck it out of the air. You know he is very good at making contested catches. But can this guy block? And that's my thing. Adam Brenneman is another individual. Have not watched any film. I'm Adam Brenneman just from what I've read from some of the colleagues that I have. Seems like a very intriguing prospect out of UMass. Had over 800 yards in 16, over 700 in 17, and had 12 touchdowns combined with both those years. I think Dallas Goedert is another individual coming from a small school. We know that he is coming out of South Dakota State, 6'5", 255 pounds. Haven't seen any film on Dallas Goedert. Heard good things. I think Durham Smythe out of Notre Dame, 6'6", 257 pounds, could be someone who opens people's eyes down in Mobile, because Durham Smythe, he can block. He's Notre Dame. He was not utilized in that Notre Dame offense. He has receiving skills, though. So I want to see him down there, and I want to see how he can harness those skills, because he wasn't really utilized for whatever reason at Notre Dame for that skill set. They used him in other ways. So I look at someone like Durham Smythe, think he can really prove himself, open people's eyes down there in Mobile. Chris Herndon from Miami, I want to say, is not going to be playing down there. He was extended an invitation, but he was hurt. Really excited to see him when he comes back. And then there's also going to be Tyler Conklin and Ian Thomas. I do not know too much about them. Tyler Conklin is from Central Michigan, 6'4", 240 pounds. Ian Thomas from Indiana, 6'5", 248 pounds. Haven't seen any film on those two individuals, but still, you go in there, you might not be the most talked about prospect, but if you show up, you get mad points, and you start popping up on people's radars, you can skyrocket up the draft. That's why this week is so important for these individuals to really show how they can practice. They can show the coaching staff for whatever team, North or South, Bill O'Brien or Vance Joseph, hey, I can play. I can take to coaching. This is how I practice. And you can see, like, I remember Matt Days was one of the last picks last year's draft in the 7th round. I guarantee he was picked because he probably showed something to Hugh Jackson at the Senior Bowl. So he was drafted by the Browns. So little things like that. And I'm going to run real quickly through the tackles and the guards before I go into guys like the fullbacks, is how they're classified when it comes to the Senior Bowl. But I haven't really watched any film on these guys. I've watched a lot of college football, though, and I see them play. But the one I'm most excited to see is Chukwuma Okorafor out of Western Michigan. We've seen Western Michigan products kind of just crapping people into the NFL. Last year, Taylor Moton was, I want to say, a second-round pick by the Carolina Panthers. We saw him end up playing. And I remember hearing last year, like, yeah, Moton is a decent prospect, but Okorafor is even better. So seeing him down there is going to be fun. Martinez Rankin is not going to be there at Mississippi State. I was excited to see him. Then there's also going to be Desmond Harrison, Joe Noteboom, Cole Madison, Terrell Crosby, Brian O'Neill, Brennan Parker, Tamon Paris, Alex Kappa, and Brett Toth. Now, Brett Toth, again, brought him up. I'm friends with his sister, and he went to the East-West Shrine game, extended an invitation to the Senior Bowl, and I want to see him with his pass sets and things of that nature. His Army's a very unconventional, at that triple option kind of offense. Like, he wasn't taking pass sets down there. He wasn't taught that kind of stuff in practice. So I want to see how he handles on the one-on-ones down there. And again, just the fact that, I don't know him personally, but I do know I'm affiliated with his sister because she was good friends with one of my buddies that was in the Marines. It's kind of a, small world kind of thing. As for the guards, Isaiah Wynn really rounds off the top. Isaiah Wynn was the left tackle for Georgia, held up well there, but has short arms, so he's more than likely going to be kicked inside. He's going to be a solid guard in this league. Sean Welsh from Iowa, another Iowa offensive lineman who will probably stick around the league for some time because Iowa just always produces people like that. Also got guys I have not seen, like Taylor Hearn, Wyatt Teller, Will Hernandez, Colby Gossett, and Skylar Phillips out of Idaho State. So those are some of the other guards. And then we got the fullbacks. And the fullbacks are interesting because you got somebody from North Carolina State named Jalen Samuels. Now, Jalen Samuels is a Swiss Army knife as a weapon. He is sub 6 foot, so he's probably going to measure in on around 5'11", about 228 pounds, so he has really, really solid, girth, you could say. And he was used in so many different ways, as a fullback, as an H-back, as a tight end. They'd give him the ball sometimes. I mean, he was a Swiss Army knife for North Carolina State. Last year, he had 75 catches for over 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, had 7 touchdowns in 15 and 16, respectively, each year. So seeing how he's utilized is going to be fun because it seems like this move tight end is a big deal in the NFL. It's been working that way. Look at guys like Evan Ingram. His big knock last year was, he can't block. And he showed up decently as a blocker. That's not a skill set. He's a receiving tight end, a move tight end. But he still showed, hey, I can block. And I remember watching him in the Senior Bowl. I was like, hey, Evan Ingram down there is doing a decent job against the edges on one-on-ones and things of that nature. Guys like that can come in and they can show, hey, I can block. But I think Jaleel Samuels is one of those guys who I'm most intrigued to see down there because he can do so many different things. Then you also have Dimitri Flowers, and I think he's another one who could open some people's eyes. We all saw him play for Oklahoma. He's playing in the playoffs. He's 6'2", 247 pounds, has 9 total touchdowns in his 2 years in Oklahoma, has just about 700 yards in those 2 years as well. Didn't really do too much in his first year, because he just played 2016 and 2017, and he is going to the draft. So we'll see how they use him. And then they have San Diego State's Nick Bowden, and I'm guessing just because he plays for San Diego State, I probably watched him when I was watching Rashad Penny, and he's probably a really good lead blocker. But again, did not do any kind of extensive scouting on Nick Bowden. Also, for the centers, Bradley Bozeman of Alabama and Mason Cole of Michigan, Scott Quisenberry of UCLA, Frank Ragnow of Arkansas, and Austin Corbett of Nevada. Bradley Bozeman, I think he could be a solid backup swing kind of interior lineman, 6'5", 314 pounds. Same with Mason Cole. I don't know too much about Quisenberry. I got to get to their tape a little bit later. I'll be watching them down in Mobile. So just to review, guys I'm most excited to see on the offense. For quarterback, it has to be Josh Allen. As much as I want to see Baker Mayfield, I want to see Josh Allen in this environment. For running back, Akrum Wadley. Already love what I see from Akrum Wadley, but I want to see him improve pass protection and things of that nature down there, see his work ethic out there on display in front of the entire NFL. Ito Smith, I'm also really excited to see because he's probably hashtag short guy brand. As for the wide receivers, I want to see James Washington separate against press. I want to see him do those kind of things, and I also want to see Jaleel Scott and see his acrobatic catches because he's going to make some of those crazy type catches. As for the tight ends, I want to see Mike Gesicki improve his blocking. I want to see Durham Smythe when it comes to the receiving skills. So those are basically the guys I'm really excited to see. Tackles, Okorafor, guards, Isaiah Wynn, and then Jaleel Samuels and Bradley Bozeman. And that's the offense, really. I mean, I just wanted to briefly go through this. I put a little thing together, and this is my first year going down to Mobile as a member of Inside the Pylon. Last year, I went down there. I was really, really blue. Didn't really know what the experience was going to be like. Felt it out. Met Mark Schofield. Met John Ledyard. Met a lot of those guys with Inside the Pylon. And I was in Inside the Pylon the next month. So, I was blessed to be affiliated with individuals who are so smart. But just before I go, I want to touch on some of the guys from the East-West Shrine game who could potentially be called up. And I've been hearing a lot of positive things coming out of the practice about, we already talked about JT Barrett and Riley Ferguson, quarterbacks, and since Mason Rudolph backed out, they might be looking for another quarterback to fill that void. And JT Barrett seems to be loved everywhere he goes. So that'd be really cool if JT Barrett can go up there, but it would also be cool if Ferguson gets a chance coming from Memphis, a smaller school, to go up there. And you know what? Recent Memphis quarterbacks haven't done exactly too well. Paxton Lynch, but somebody that keep into your brain to see if that's what you want if the NFL wants to bring him up. And then for wide receivers, because we had another dropout, Deshaun Hamilton of Penn State and Darius Fountain of Northern Iowa have been turning a lot of heads down there at the East-West Shrine game in Florida and all those practices. So those are a couple of individuals. I've also heard good things about Jake Winicky out of South Dakota State, another wide receiver. So we'll see if they get the call up. Hopefully for them they do, because it's an excellent experience for these individuals. As for the defense, just to touch on some of the defensive guys that are absolutely killing it, according to all reports. I don't have my boots on the deck when it comes to being in Tampa at the East-West Shrine game, but I have been paying attention to it. And Justin Lawler of SMU, defensive end, an edge kind of player, he has been doing really well by all reports. Kenny Young, UCLA inside linebacker, and Chris Wardley of Penn State, who was associated with the Giants, which is pretty cool. Those three have been really standing out when it comes to the defense, and I've heard decent things about Fularansu Fatukasi, who I just really wanted to say his name. He's a 3 technique. He's probably about around 300 pounds, 6'2", something along those lines. He's from UConn. Really, the reason I'm highlighting him is because I've heard a couple things and I really just wanted to say his name. And then the one person I'm hearing probably the most about is Kentavious Street. Now, he's an edge for North Carolina State. And the reason I really bring him up is I want to see him get the call up to the Senior Bowl. And I feel like he's being overshadowed because of the people he played with at NC State on that defensive line. Obviously, you have Bradley Chubb, who will not be down at the Senior Bowl, and then his two interior defensive linemen, Justin Jones and B.J. Hill, who will both be there. Those guys are all studs, and you don't really hear as much about Street, but Street is dominating, supposedly, down there at the East-West Shrine practices. So good for him, and I hope to see him get the call up to Mobile. All right, this is football, and I hope you enjoyed me talking about some of these prospects. You're going to be hearing a lot more about these individuals as the draft gets closer. Because, the draft, I love how it's kind of progressed and it's become a huge media event. It's become this huge thing. And I just feed into it, man, because I can't get enough of this. This is my life right now, is following the draft. It's a year-round thing for me. I was scouting in the summer some of these guys who I am entering into the guide, and it's going to keep being like this as long as Inside the Pylon or whoever will have me. And I'm just honored to be with Inside the Pylon. So, for myself, Nick Filato, I will be signing out of here. I hope you guys enjoyed this show, and stand by for a defensive report. I just got to watch a little bit more tape on some of the top guys, and we'll go over the individuals. Alrighty, guys. You guys have a great one. Bye-bye.